things, and it looks like we are at the end of an era. The days of LeBron and KD and Steph dominating the NBA are over and done by the look of things, because we have LeBron James out in the first round. Steph Curry didn't even make the playoffs. Kevin Durant swept in the first round. And as all of these players, older players of the old guard, are on their way out, they're being taken out by the young guard. LeBron got swept last year and this year by Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. KD got swept, or not, LeBron didn't get swept this year, but gentleman's sweep, 4-1. KD and the Suns got swept by Anthony Edwards. So it's looking like these young Bucks are starting to snatch the mantle, so to speak, from their elders. Now, that trend could continue with the Mavs and Clippers series, with Luka being able to edge his team past Paul George, James Harden, Kawhi, and Westbrook on the Clippers. Now, that's a much less impressive feat, as the Clippers have just been playing mid for the recent duration of the series. The Mavs are only up one game, so anything is possible at this point, but Kawhi Leonard is back on the IL, so I don't expect to see him make a return for the series. Russell Westbrook, I don't believe has scored more than 13 points in this entire series. James Harden didn't even crack double digits in the last game. So if I'm a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was, I'm putting my money on the Mavericks. Now, LeBron James, just to get the more irrelevant news out of the way first, he made headlines last week when, after they got swept, people were asking him about his feelings about that, and he responded with, "It's just basketball." And I do think that's very telling about where LeBron's mindset is at this stage in his career. But a lot of people made a big to-do about it. And, I think it is indicative that he's pretty much got one foot out the door in the NBA. He's already thinking about life beyond. He's got a nice setup in LA. He's made a movie before. He's got the Uninterrupted, I think. I'll be Kevin Durant. Shit. I think LeBron's the one that does Uninterrupted, but whatever it is, he's got his own production company. So he's got other markets with which to supplement his income after he puts up the sneakers. But it's still jarring to hear, just because I couldn't imagine LeBron James even like 6 or 7 years ago saying, "Oh, it's just basketball. It's no big deal." This is the same guy who said that he spent his entire life, basically, at least his NBA career, chasing a ghost in Chicago. That level of urgency, that sense of importance that LeBron has placed on chasing the GOAT mantle, for him to shrug off getting put out in the first round implies that he's no longer has that hunger in him, which is understandable because, from LeBron's perspective, he already thinks he's the GOAT. So he's caught up to and past that ghost in Chicago. He's exorcised that demon from his perspective and a lot of people's perspectives. And at this point, he's probably aware that if you don't think LeBron's a GOAT at this point, there's realistically very little he could do to convince you otherwise. He's kind of already made his case. Because even if LeBron were to win 6 championships, if you're a hardcore Jordan fan, you're going to point out the fact that LeBron, it took him let's say somehow the Lakers win the next two championships. That would be LeBron's 22nd, 23rd seasons. It took him 23 years to win six, where it only took Jordan 13 seasons, which, I mean, is a big difference. They'll talk about how Jordan won all of his rings consecutively. Once Jordan was winning championships, he never played a full season of basketball with the Bulls and didn't win the championship. Whereas LeBron, it kind of ebbs and flows. So, I mean, there are still plenty of things people can critique him for. They'll say, oh, his records are just longevity stats. And, of course, when you play for 25 years, you're going to get all the records. That doesn't mean that he was better. So, I mean, people are going to pick him apart no matter what he does. It's just interesting to see him pretty much openly admitting his philosophy these days. Now, in regard to what his future holds with the Lakers, he has a player option. If he decides to opt out, he can become a free agent this summer. And some people think he might do that just to see how the whole Bronny thing plays out. I'm not really convinced that LeBron is gonna move heaven and earth just to play on the same team as Bronny. He's always said that he wants to play with Bronny. Now, you can interpret that as he wants to be on Bronny's team, but if Bronny and him are in the league at the same time, he would still be playing in the NBA with Bronny. And, I mean, he's talked about it before that he would love to play against Bronny in a game and use all 6 of his fouls immediately. So I think a lot of times whenever people talk about LeBron playing with Bronny, they take it a little too hyper-literal and focus solely on, LeBron has got to make sure the Lakers draft Bronny or else, he's going to be upset and he's going to lead the Lakers just to go wherever Bronny goes. I don't think it's that kind of situation. If I'm the Lakers, I'm not drafting Bronny just to make LeBron happy. I mean, at this point, LeBron's been the Lakers for 6 years now, and they really don't have – they have one championship to show for it, which granted, I mean, that's more championships than they would have had in the last 15 years without LeBron. I can guarantee you that. Or technically, last 14, 2010. But I mean, I don't think any realistic observer could call LeBron's run with the Lakers a success. If you would have told anybody in 2018 that LeBron was going to go to the Lakers and within a year they were going to get Anthony Davis and that later on they would add Russell Westbrook to the mix and all they get out of it is one championship, a Western Conference Finals appearance, 2 times missing the playoffs, and 2 first-round exits. They would have said you're crazy. I mean, LeBron and AD as a duo was looked at the time they were formed as the next generation, as the modern version of Kobe and Shaq level dominance that could help LeBron age gracefully into his 20s plus season as AD would slowly become the better of the two and he would pick up more of the load from LeBron and so on. And that's just not how it worked out. If you would have told them that AD would still be the second best player on the team 6 years into it, that's just not what anybody would have had on their bingo card, and it's just not a success because of that. So the Lakers, I mean, if LeBron, I think he'll stay in LA just because he's so invested in the area, not so much the basketball team, because he keeps sending little subliminal hints to try to keep them on their toes, like maybe he'll leave. A reporter asked him if it crossed his mind in Game 5 that this could be his last time playing in a Lakers uniform. And LeBron said, I'm not going to answer that, just to make Jeannie Buss sweat a little bit. And LeBron has always been one to do stuff like that, to kind of put the front office on edge. And I've never really understood why he enjoys causing really unnecessary drama. All LeBron had to say to field that question and not turn it into a talking segment on a show like this, or even shows like First Take or Undisputed, is that's not how my mind works. I focus on the here and now, especially when I'm in the NBA playoffs. I have plenty of time to think about my future when I get home and to come down off this emotional roller coaster that was the first round. But that's it. If I can say that off the top of my head, having never been a part of a press conference, LeBron, who's been in press conferences for the last 23 years, can come up with something like that. Like, he's got to know that question is coming, and he intentionally chose a provocative answer. And I've never understood why he opts to do stuff like that, but to each their own, I guess. But the LeBron era in LA seems like it's going to continue, and I don't see much success for him in the future, to be honest. Like, if I were the Lakers, I would consider trading LeBron and AD, quite honestly. I mean, when LeBron retires, which he probably will do at the end of his next contract, I mean, AD by himself, by that point, he'll be like 35, 36 years old. He's already injury prone now. Imagine how bad he'll be at that age. He's not going to lead you to the playoffs, much less deep playoff runs on his own. You might as well get what you can for him now before they just get so old that they're basically worthless as far as trade value. Because now you have teams that might still trade for LeBron just off the off chance that they can draft Bronny to get him to stay for a while, and they might can make a quick go of a championship run like this. I don't know, somehow you put LeBron on the Knicks. Like, they might think that's what it takes to get him over the top. But that's pretty much all I've got to say about LeBron. On to the other old head who got unceremoniously dumped from the NBA playoffs, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has had an interesting career trajectory, probably the most interesting career trajectory of any NBA player of all time, I might argue, because he went from the NBA's golden child. LeBron went to Miami, became the biggest bad guy in the league. Who filled LeBron's void as the NBA's darling? Kevin Durant. He was in Oklahoma, had a nice young crew around him, nice guy, helped out the community, like whatever it is that you look for in your athletes. Mild-mannered, didn't rock the boat at all, just a good guy. Well, then he pulled a LeBron and turned heel, and he goes to Golden State. He becomes the most hated player in NBA history, even more so than LeBron, and LeBron went to Miami. And he wins 2 championships, only plays there for 4 seasons. He starts mouthing off on Twitter, becomes one of the most sensitive individuals in NBA history, probably the most, and is always getting into random Twitter beefs and social media feuds and going on interviews and taking shots at people that took minor shots at him, and just becomes super sensitive. And because of that, he takes issue with people crediting the Warriors for all the winning and saying that he went and joined a team that was already successful. He couldn't make a team successful on his own. So he decides to leave his perfect situation in Golden State to go venture out on his own. And Kevin Durant has pretty much been an NBA Siberia ever since. Since he left Golden State 5 years ago, he hasn't made it past the second round in the playoffs. Now, this is somebody who, when he left Golden State, not counting the fact that he was injured. I forget what he tore when he left, but like before that injury, he was the best player in the NBA. Like, it was an Achilles tear, I'm pretty sure, and it was pretty much undisputed at that point. You might have had people argue for Giannis, but KD was at least a top 2, top 3 player in the league. And so for him to go and leave Golden State to go try to make something happen on his own, it was a compelling storyline, and just nothing ever came of it. Kyrie had all his shenanigans happen. They got James Harden, and the three of them only played like 33 games together over the course of like a season and a half. Then they got Ben Simmons, and Ben Simmons, I don't even know what his deal is. He is probably one of the biggest flameouts the NBA's had in the last 10 years. And like Kevin Durant, he just hasn't had any sort of aura around him at all. And he's just kind of, the fire is just not there when you watch him. I don't know, it's just weird how that played out, because if I were an NBA scriptwriter, the thought of Kevin Durant chasing, the trying to get the burden off his back of all the critics trying to, lambast him for never leading a team to a championship that hadn't already won one before him. Like, it makes for good NBA storytelling. And despite all the good pieces he's had around him, he's had talent. Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. I'm pretty sure his first season in Phoenix, Chris Paul was still there. He just hasn't been able to get it done. And if he hasn't been able to get it done at this point, I don't see anything changing there. I think Kevin Durant is just sort of on a one-way trip to NBA irrelevancy. And as much as I don't like him for just his various faults as an NBA player, it is still unfortunate to see a competitive player, for whatever reason, just constantly get sidelined. Because, it would be interesting to see him go up against some of these more bigger name stars in deeper rounds in the playoffs and have it competitive instead of just getting bounced by Anthony Edwards in the first round. And Anthony Edwards has been playing so out of his mind in this playoff so far. People have been comparing him to Michael Jordan. Now, I think that's a little too far, though I will say this is Anthony Edwards' I think second season in the NBA. And if you look at the playoffs that Michael Jordan had in his second season, that was the 1986 playoffs against the Celtics when he had his famous 63-point game against Larry Bird and the Celtics. That was also, still is, the record for the most single points ever scored in an NBA game. In the playoffs, that is. And that series, the Bulls actually got swept. Meanwhile, Anthony Edwards just swept the Phoenix Suns. So, if you really want to argue it, you can say Anthony Edwards had a more successful first playoff experience than Michael Jordan. You can't really argue it. Like, that's just factual. He did have a better first playoff experience than Michael Jordan. He's actually getting to sniff the second round. But just for a statistical comparison, Anthony Edwards in Game 1 of his series against the Suns. He scored 33 points on 14 of 24 shooting, had 9 rebounds and 6 assists. Now, Michael Jordan, in his first game, had 49 points on 18 of 36 shooting, 2 assists, and 4 rebounds. Now, this is back when the first round was only 3 games, so MJ only had 3 to Anthony Edwards' 4. Now, for Edwards in Game 2, that was his low point game. He had 15 points, 3 of 12 from the field, which is really rough. 8 assists and 5 rebounds. So, despite that being a rough game for him, it is good to see that he can still be impactful when it comes to getting assists, 3 steals, 2, getting rebounds. That level of versatility, I think, separates a player from being a one-trick pony to being a potential future superstar. Now with MJ Game 2, that was when he dropped his historic 63 points, and he still managed to get 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. So that was a great all-around performance from MJ. Shot 53% from the field too. So I mean, that's just a monster performance, even though the Bulls did lose that game. Now, for Anthony Edwards in Game 3, he dropped 36 on 9 rebounds and 5 assists on about 50% shooting. And MJ in his third and final game dropped 19 points, 9 assists, and 10 rebounds. So almost got a triple-double. But that was MJ's one game in the series where he just looked human. And, I mean, it's still solid stats. I would say that's equivalent to Anthony Edwards' 15-point game. And then MJ didn't get a fourth game, but Anthony Edwards dropped 49 rebounds and 6 assists in Game 4. So, I mean, statistically, I think people that are comparing Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan, as far as Anthony Edwards in year 2 to Michael Jordan in year 2, I think they have some leg to stand on. Now, if people are saying that Anthony Edwards is going to be the next Michael Jordan, that's ridiculous. Don't put those expectations on that poor young man. Just let him be and focus on taking the comparisons year by year. But as it stands, he's on a great trajectory, and he's already knocked off Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in the first round. So, sky's the limit as far as Anthony Edwards is concerned. But the big playoff matchup that's on tonight is the Bucks and the Pacers. The Pacers are up 3-2, so this is win or go home for the Bucks. Giannis has been out for the whole series. Dame's been out for the last 2 games, and it's been up to Chris Middleton to carry the load. He's been doing a decent job the last 3 games. He scored 42, 25, and 29 respectively. His shooting percentage hasn't been great, but I mean, he's pretty much having to be their one-man scoring machine. Though Bobby Portis did chip in Game 5 and score 29. He pretty much had to, though. So he got ejected in Game 4 in the first quarter for pie-facing somebody, which is it's like not a slap. At least the way I looked at it is when you just kind of grab somebody's face and just like push them like that. And he got ejected for that. No, I mean, is it cool that he did that? No. But I think it's ridiculous when you watch the video and see what happened, that got him ejected. Especially in a playoff game. Like, it is insane to me just how soft the NBA has gotten. When I saw the ESPN update, it said Bobby Portis ejected for throwing hands at Pacers guard. I was like, ooh, I got to check this out. And I checked it out, and I was like, really? That's what they're calling throwing hands? I mean, It's still, I mean, objectively, you shouldn't do that. But to act like that is some like monumental, oh my gosh, how could Bobby Portis even think of doing that to a competitor and like pearl clutch over what he did? It's just silly. And especially when you, like, it's the NBA. These are grown men. You should be able to tolerate somebody like pie facing you and just go down and dunk on him the next time you get the ball. Like, that's how you should settle stuff like that. If I were the Pacers, I wouldn't want him to get ejected. I would want to be able to sit and punish him for that insulting maneuver for the rest of the game. And I mean, it worked out for the Pacers because Bobby Portis getting ejected, I would say, pretty much cost the Bucks the game. They lost by like 12 points. Bobby Portis had 4 in the part of the first quarter that he was there for, so I think he could very easily have helped them cover that spread, so to speak. But we'll see what happens tonight. I would really be disappointed if the Bucks get put out and we don't get to see Giannis or Dame come back in the playoffs, just because I think the Bucks have a compelling story. And for them to have it end in the first round because of injuries, I think would just be unfortunate. But that's the way it goes in the NBA sometimes, and there's not really much you can do about it. I hope we get to see the Bucks in the second round. Now the Knicks, they also play tonight, and they have a chance to close out the Sixers. And it'll be neat to see the Knicks make it to the second round too. It's nice to have New York basketball actually doing good again. I always like it when the famous teams are doing good. And I also like it when the small market teams are doing good. I think it's better when you have a mixture of the two. Like, anytime you have an NBA Finals where, like, hypothetically, it's like the Charlotte Hornets versus the Sacramento Kings, like, that's just a snooze fest. Why would anybody want to watch that if you don't live in Charlotte or Sacramento? Just because, historically speaking, no big stars play there, and there's just nothing exciting or nothing appealing about that. However, if it was the Knicks versus the Hornets, then that would be a nice change of pace. That would be interesting, or at least more interesting than the alternative. I mean, obviously, like Knicks and Lakers, that would get all the media attention, but we can't let the big market cities hog everything. So a nice little influx, I think, is always ideal. But one interesting factoid about the Knicks is they have not won a playoff series, like closed out a playoff series in Madison Square Garden in 25 years. So I've never been alive to see the Knicks close out a series at home. And they almost got, the last time they did it, for any older viewers watching this, was in 1999 against the Pacers. So it's been a minute. That was back when Patrick Ewing, Latrell Sprewell, Allen Houston, Reggie Miller, like Mark Jackson, like that. Those were the lineups back then. And they almost got a chance to do it this weekend, but they blew a 6-point lead with 28.5 seconds left. It was the classic. The Sixers hit a three-pointer, got the and one, missed the free throw, went out, hit another three-pointer, I think, and just chaos ensued. The Knicks collapsed. So we'll see what happens. I think the Sixers will probably get this one in Game 7. Who knows? That can go either way. Now, outside of the NBA, I guess I'll quickly mention the Thunder advanced. So did the Celtics. The Cavs and the Magic are still in their series. The Cavs are up 3-2. The Nuggets and the Timberwolves are officially playing each other in round 2. That'll be a fun matchup with Anthony Edwards versus Jokic. But in the fight world, Canelo Alvarez has a fight this weekend against a dude named Jamie. I don't know his last name off the top of my head. Jamie Munguia. Or Moon. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Jamie M. We'll call him. And I think Canelo's going to win this pretty handily. Jamie, he's got a pretty good. He's 43-0, which is a heck of a record. A lot of those wins are knockouts. 34 of them are knockouts. However, if you actually dig into the, I guess you would say, quality of those wins, it doesn't look like he's fought any high-profile fighters. Of his 43 completed fights, 12 of his opponents have a Wikipedia page. I mean, that's not scientific, but I'm just saying he hasn't exactly been fighting the world's best. But now he is, and we'll see how we can cope. Now, I mean, that's definitely no reason for Canelo to get cocky, because Canelo also has some issues when it comes to winning easy fights. He's been upset a time or two, very recently actually, and he can never be too confident, but I am confident in him. I think he's got this. He just has to make sure that, like I said, this is a big fight for Jamie, so he's going to make sure that whenever he slips up, that being Jamie, Canelo can step in and capitalize on his mistakes, see if he gets a little starstruck, take advantage of him being in that moment, because Canelo Alvarez has the advantage of he's been in big fights for the last 10 years. Ever since he fought Floyd Mayweather, I don't know how long ago that was. That might have even been like 12 years ago. But he's no stranger to a big fight atmosphere, and he should be at home in that environment. So hopefully he can wrap this up real quick and move on to a fight that people actually care about, such as fighting the other Charlo, or putting together that dream match with Terrence Crawford that we're still waiting on. And last segment of the show, and this is going to be a quick one because there's really not that much to say other than it's sad how low the bar has gotten for what qualifies as a pro boxing match. But Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul has officially been sanctioned by professional boxing. So it's going to go on Mike Tyson's record, and it's no longer just an exhibition. I think it's one thing to have these fights take place. I mean, they're fun to watch. When they don't mean anything. But to give this the guise of a pro fight when one of the guys, at this point, you can't really just call Jake Paul a YouTuber, but to pretend that he's on the same threshold as actual professional boxers is just kind of crazy when most of the people he has fought to this point are UFC fighters, which, while being a combat sport, is not boxing. And he's fought Tyson Fury's little brother. He's yet to fight like an actual contending, like really good boxing prospect. So that's one thing. Mike Tyson hasn't fought a session match in like since 2003, 2005, something like that. So it's been a minute. So I don't know. I don't like it. It just adds an air of legitimacy to what should just be a fun sideshow. But it'll make it seem more prestigious, I guess, and that's what they're after. Also, I lied. One last topic to get into is Ryan Garcia tested positive for PEDs. So that could explain his dominant performance last week, though him and his promoter, Golden Boy Promotions, ran by Oscar De La Hoya, claim they have no idea how he tested positive, and that if it was a genuine positive result, and they have no idea how the drug got into his system, but that they claim it was a false test. Now, he better hope it's a false test, because Amir Khan got popped for the same substance that Ryan Garcia got popped for, and he got a 2-year suspension. I mean, Ryan Garcia is young, he could survive, but sitting out 2 years at this stage of your career is not a good career choice. So, if he did use PEDs knowingly, shame on him. He should get suspended. If there was some slip up and somehow, I don't know how, like a lot of people say, and they could just be saying it, that like when they get a positive test, like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that this, like Barry Bonds, like the lotion I was using had PEDs in it, or like I took this medication that had a banned substance in it. I just feel like that's something. Like, I've never accidentally taken a performance enhancing drug, but I don't know how you really do that. And I would imagine if you're a boxer and you're going to take your P test, would you not tell the people giving you the test, like, these are the medications my doctor has prescribed? Are any of them not okay to be taking? Or maybe that's something you ask your doctor before he prescribes you medication. I mean, if my livelihood is making millions of dollars in a combat sport or any professional sport, honestly, any job where you're getting drug tested routinely, you might want to make sure that you have a list of banned substances that you can give to your doctor and say, hey, don't prescribe me any of these. If you have any equivalents, let me know and I'll run them by my organization and we'll see what we can work out. Or if that's too much work for the doctors that have to look through all the records, at the very least, just be transparent about what medications you're taking. Now, if the problem is that he's taking things he's not prescribed, then rewind the video back like 3 minutes ago where I said, shame on him, tough luck if he gets suspended, because you have to know better. Especially, once again, if you're making millions of dollars, there's no logical reason to be dabbling and stuff like that and taking those risks. Now, anybody that's seen Ryan Garcia's social media over the last month or two knows that he might not have the best rational decision making of anybody generally, or even pro fighters for that matter. I've seen things on his social media feed that rival anybody short of Antonio Brown. And Antonio Brown, his social media feed has just been absolutely insane. I'm surprised. I know Twitter, now that Elon Musk has taken over, isn't big on deplatforming, but I'm surprised that people haven't made a push to just get him banned from all platforms and have him be canceled off to some forest in Wyoming or something for some of the stuff he's been posting on Twitter. But with that being said, we'll call it a wrap on this episode, and we'll see y'all next week and see what happens with the NBA Finals in the interim.